Well, we've got those Kid Rock tickets coming up in 10 minutes. He will be at T-Mobile Center this weekend, Saturday night. So we'll give those next pair of tickets away here in less than 10 minutes on 95.7 FM KCMO. We do have Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, joining us on KCMO 95.7 FM. We're streaming, of course, all morning long on that KCMO Talk Radio app. Our podcasts are all on there as well. So, Dave, let's just start off with this. And we'll get to the broader picture here on whether or not the Kansas legislature had success or not this year. But I know that one thing the legislature did override is an income tax rate cut. So what exactly will income tax rates be dropping to for Kansans, and what does it mean in terms of timeline and all this?
So, good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me. Senate Bill 269 uses what's called a ratchet, so that it sets revenue targets, and when tax collections come in higher than that, the excess revenue is used to gradually reduce tax rates. And it could be hundredths of a point, it could be tenths of a point. So the goal is to get down to 4%, where right now the top rate is like 5.6%. So it's a long way to go. To get there will take quite some time, probably. It's a good thing to have. Here's the downside, though. At the same time they did that, which is good, they did not cut spending the way they need to. And so they did this knowing that in 2028, legislative research says they're going to run into budget deficits. Spending has grown exponentially since Governor Kelly came in. Now, that's partly coincidental because most of the budget increase is really driven by Republicans.
I was going to say, they can't scream about small government. They're the ones sending her a budget.
They send her a budget. We are $1.5 billion in the general fund higher than if we had increased general fund spending for inflation and population since 2018. That's how far it has gotten out of whack. And that's going to have to be dealt with. It's not difficult, but there's a Code committee set up, which is like the state version of Doge, but it really wasn't allowed to do much yet. There's a simple process that could be implemented to force agencies to come up with ways to operate more efficiently. And again, this isn't about cutting school spending or cutting services. It's about eliminating waste and unnecessary spending. Wow.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I saw this last night, and I shared it on X from Steve Moore, who's a economist, Heritage Foundation. You probably know him. He is on this show fairly frequently. And he shared state population changes attributable to interstate migration. And Kansas has a net outflow of migration when three of our bordering states, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Missouri, have all seen positive inflow migration. So Kansas is falling behind. I mean, it was the worst of any state in the region outside of Illinois, 2 states over. It's not good when you talk about people leaving the state of Kansas right now, outside of like here in Johnson County, it seems like.
Well, even in Johnson County, because we track the migration data, IRS tracks it with income. They look at adjustable gross income. Mm-hmm. Even Johnson County is losing on net with adjusted gross income from domestic migration. Since 2000, since the turn of the century, the population loss from domestic migration had Kansas at it's about 197,000 people. We were ranked 39th in the state. We just lost almost 5,000 more.
Mm. Wow.
And this isn't going to change. The income tax change last year that's in effect now will certainly help. And the one that just got passed this year will also help if they get spending under control. But that's not the only thing. It's an all of the above approach. We have excessive regulation. We have utility rates that are skyrocketing. We need to get this all under control.
Mm-hmm. So Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, is here. I mean, listen, how would we came into the session with a lot of expectations because the supermajorities for the Republicans in the House and the Senate in Kansas were supposedly stronger than they had ever been. So basically, whatever they wanted to do, we were told they would be able to do, and they could basically override any Governor Kelly veto. So, they're obviously saying up there that we passed a lot of bills and we had a pretty good legislative session. But there's a lot of people out there I talk to who say no, they left a lot on the table. Where are you at?
Well, they did pass a lot of bills, and they say that it was the Senate was saying that they passed more bills this year than ever before, and that may be true. But that doesn't excuse not dealing with the number one issue that taxpayers wanted them to fix. And it's property tax relief. There was a little bit at the very end, but I mean, it's like $50 for someone with a $200,000 house. That's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It should have been done, and it's good that they did do it. But what got in the way, for the most part, was political aspirations and some just pettiness between the two chambers that has always existed. You know, it's the House and Senate rivalry, and in some cases, like the constitutional amendment that would limit the increase in taxable value. To the Senate's version was 3% fixed. Your taxable value can't go up more than 3% a year. The House version was using a rolling average, and that would have been better than nothing, but not nearly as good as a 3% fixed. And it seems like there was no, I want to do it this way, you want to do it that way. And so the Senate passes first. The House wouldn't even vote on that because they passed their own, and the Senate's sitting there saying, well, we already sent one. I mean, it's, guys, come on, come together and do something for taxpayers.
And, yeah, when you say political aspirations, we had touched on this last week, but it's not just maybe people who want to be governor. It's just whatever that next is for some of the folks in the legislature, right?
Yeah, I mean, for some people, it's just, I want to come back in 26. I want my same office back. And they even picked some of their leaders based on whether they would protect them from taking tough votes. There was a lot of good legislation that died on the vine because, well, technically it's still active. They could bring it up if it hasn't been voted on. They could do it next year because it's a 2-year session. But there's a lot of looking over their shoulder, and it's odd, instead of saying, vote for me, I did these things, it's more, vote for me, I didn't mess up your life as a city or county official. It's just really odd. One other thing I want to get out there on property tax, Pete, the Democrats are criticizing leadership in both parties for not getting anything done. But I can't name one thing that the Democrats introduced that would have reduced property taxes. In fact, some of them voted against some of these property tax measures. So, it's easy to cast stones afterward, but, we should be saying, so what was your idea? Show me the idea you introduced.
That's a good point. But you know what? Listen, I hate to say it, but you see the same thing in D.C. The party that's out of power is easily able to hide behind the fact that they have no power and say, boy, the guys in charge and gals in charge are doing nothing for you, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but that happens. But you're right. I mean, they don't have the answer. The last thing on this front, Dave, is property taxes are obviously critical on both sides of our state line, but on the Kansas side in particular, the state portion of the property taxes is fairly insignificant compared to your schools, your city, and your county. Was there anything they could have done to try to limit the damage that those institutions are doing to people's property tax bills?
Absolutely. And the first is the constitutional amendment we discussed.
Okay.
The other thing, and this one is still live, in the last 2 days, the House and Senate tax committees negotiated a really good bill. It's Senate Bill 82, substitute for it. This bill would put a limit on the amount of tax increase that a local entity can impose. It works out to roughly 4%. There's an either or, which is less, but it's roughly 4%. And they put an incentive in. If you stay at revenue neutral, you get 100% of the incentive value. If you go up to, in this example, 2%, you get 75% of the value. And if you just don't cross the limit, but you're over 2%, then you'll get 50% of the value. So there's a carrot. The stick is reasonable. If you want to exceed the limit, you can, as long as 80% or more of the elected officials vote to do it. Cities and counties were having heart attacks over that because they don't want it. This always comes down to,
and who failed on that
taxpayers.
front? Was that the Senate or the House who failed on that front?
Well, the House passed it, not by enough to overcome a governor's veto, which is kind of irrelevant because the session's over. They couldn't come back and override it anyway. The Senate didn't take it up. So it's definitely not going to go into effect. But because the Senate didn't take it up, it is still live. And they could and should put that on the governor's desk the first week in January when they come back.
That would be nice. That would be nice, man. All right, Dave. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Pete. Thanks.
All right. Dave Trabert does great work with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO.